Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you all doing today? I see a lot of new faces as well as some old familiar faces. Welcome to another Smrt Live class. I'm your teacher, Neal. I teach here on Wednesdays. If you watch this video in the archives on the YouTube channel, you'll probably hear me mention a lot of names. Those are the names of the people who are joining us live, and I can see them in the chat room. So if I turn to say, "Hi, Sway, how are you doing?" That's somebody in the chat room. If you haven't watched one of these live, please try to do so. It's a little more interactive when it is live. If you are watching an archive, of course, you have the convenience of pausing, rewinding, listening to something again, but you probably miss out on the chat feature. Hello, JB and Paluxio and Steve and all the people just now joining. I will share the link to the class notes one more time in the chat room. There they are. Today we're going to be talking about writing and specifically linking devices. And linking devices are a way to show a relationship between two ideas in your sentences when you're writing sentences. So we're going to look at cause and effect and also comparison and contrast. And we're going to look at some of the words that show the relationship between two parts of a sentence. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put the lesson up in the background. Oh, I have a question already. Bharat asks a question. If you find or found anybody smoking, please report it. What should you use? Find or found? Actually, since I have my class notes up right here, let's go down. I'm going to copy and paste that. A little challenge in the morning. What should it be? Find or found? Rosa, thank you for noticing that I am wearing the correct shirt for the presentation this morning for the Smrt Live class. I just have to remember to avoid the color green. Williams, that's a good question. Yes, you can use some of these linking devices between paragraphs as well. Sway, you're asking, since Abby is leaving, will I be taking over her class and doing 2 classes a week? I will. For the meantime, right now, I will be taking over Abby's classes. So I will be doing 2 of these videos a week, 2 of these Smrt Live classes a week. Denise, you say find. That's correct. The correct answer is find. If you find anybody smoking, please report to XYZ, because we have the conditional if, and this is an always true statement. This will be an always true statement. We have present tense verb and we have a present tense verb. So we can call this type 0 conditional. This will always be true. This will always be true. It's a rule, it's a request. If you find anybody smoking, please report to XYZ. It's factual. It's factual. It's not imaginary. It's not hypothetical. So we're going to use present tense verbs to make a type 0 conditional. Yeah, and it's all Mo. That's good. It's an order. It's an order. It's a good way to think of it. This is an order, a command. You are being asked to do something. And it will always be true. There will be no exception. If you find any smoker, you must report them. Welcome, Parveen. Today we are, and Najat, today we are going to talk about conditionals. Quickly to go through the links before I begin one more time. If you have any questions, please contact Zach at smartenglish.com. That's smrtenglish.com. If you want to know more about our subscription services, you can click on either of these two links and see more about the Smrt classes that I teach and Josh teaches and Sean teaches. Abby will be leaving us. She got a new job, so it's on good terms. Happy news that she's leaving us. If you haven't joined our Facebook group yet, we do have a Facebook group, Learn English on Facebook with Smrt. Please join that. And then finally, Smrt English. You probably know about this because you are already on YouTube. If you're watching this live now, you can watch any of the archived videos on Smrt English. And welcome to the people joining us, Ali, Sarah, Fanny. Let's get started. Linking cause and effect, and linking comparison and contrast. Okay, I will use the slideshow, and you can follow along with the class notes. Maybe I'll share the link one more time in the chat room. First, I have to grab it though. Let me grab the class notes. For those of you just joining us, the link I shared in the chat room links to the class notes that I'll be using. Okay, let's talk about linking devices now. In written English, linking devices help your reader to see and understand the relationship between your clauses, sentences, or paragraphs. Linking devices can be conjunctions, adverbs, or phrases, and can signal a variety of meanings and relationships, including cause and effect, time sequence, similarities, contrast, examples, and explanation. In this unit, we will focus on linking devices showing cause and effect relationships. First, cause. And we're just going to talk about three of the words that show cause to begin with. These are common subordinating conjunctions used to express cause. Because, as, and since. And when you use them as a conjunction, they're all going to be synonyms. So in this case, because, as, and since will all be synonyms when you use them as a linking device. I know especially the word as has many meanings. Since also has different meanings, but here when you use them as a linking device, when you use them as a conjunction, you are going to use them as synonyms. Okay, let's go to next. These words, because, as, and since, begin a dependent clause. In other words, they must be followed by a subject and verb. As we saw in the previous unit, this dependent clause can begin the sentence or come after the main clause. In the class notes, I am going to add some terms maybe. A clause is any part of a sentence with its own subject and verb. Then we have two types of clauses. We have independent clause, sometimes also referred to as the main clause, can be its own sentence without any additional phrases or clauses attached, meaning you can end in a period. You can put a period on it, and that independent clause becomes a sentence. A dependent clause is a little different. A dependent clause has a word, like a adverbial, a conjunction, or a phrase attached to it, so it cannot be a sentence on its own. You cannot finish in a period. You need an independent clause. If you have a dependent clause, you're going to need an independent clause attached to it before you can put a period. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. The first one, using the word because. Because many customers complained, the company changed its policy. You can change these, you can switch these around. The company changed its policy because many customers complained. Both those sentences will have the exact same meaning. Before we continue, let's look at the construction of those. Okay. Those first two examples I gave you, linking device, that's the word in this sentence, because. Our linking device is because. When we use a linking device, we're going to create a dependent clause. And because that linking device becomes part of that dependent clause, because many customers complained, remember, you have, in a dependent clause, you still have a subject and a verb. Here we have many customers as our subject, and then complained as our verb, then the comma. If you start with the linking device because, you're going to need a comma before the independent clause. And the independent clause also has its own subject, the company, and verb, changed. And this also happens to have an object. So when you use because, you're going to need a subject and a verb, and that will be your dependent clause. If you start with the dependent clause, remember to use a comma, then put the independent clause in the period. Or you can switch those around, start with the independent clause, then put your linking device, the word because, and then the dependent clause. If it comes in the middle and ends the sentence, you don't need a comma. You don't need a comma. So two ways to construct this. Linking device, dependent clause, comma, independent clause, or independent clause, linking device, dependent clause. Two ways to construct that. Okay, I'm going to drink my coffee off camera here and pop back up. Okay. Steve, that's a good example sentence. I'm not going to put that one up, but that is excellent sentence construction. Leo, that's a good question. What's a better way to write? Starting with the dependent clause or ending with the dependent clause? I would say whatever, I guess there's two ways to think about this. It's a style, it's stylistic. You're going to have to find what style you prefer. If you find yourself using a lot of like sentences like this that have a dependent clause and independent clause, you might want to switch them, especially if they're in sentences that follow each other, to give variation. Uh, there is no right or wrong. Some people say if you start with the dependent clause, you're emphasizing the dependent clause. Some people say if you end with the dependent clause, then you're emphasizing the dependent clause because that's the last thing your reader will read. I would say, for me, how I read, if you start with the dependent clause, you are emphasizing it. You are emphasizing it. This one emphasizes the customer complaint. I would say this one shows more emphasis on the customer's complaint or the customer's complaining. If I wanted to emphasize the information in the dependent clause, I would start with it. And that's just stylistically how I would write. Carol asks, is this correct? Let's take a look at it. I'm going to eat something because I am getting hungry. This is correct. We have subject and verb. Am going, I am going. And then a verb pattern, to eat, and then an object, something. Then our linking device, and then I am getting, and then an adjective, hungry. So subject and verb on both sides with the linking device coming in the middle. This is a correct sentence. Correct sentence. Paluxio, I didn't see your question. I would say, again, Nora, to repeat that, if I wanted to emphasize the information in the dependent clause, I would start with the dependent clause. I think this gives more emphasis on the beginning information. Paluxio, your question going way back, Paluxio asks a question, what do you call the feeling after you work out, after you exercise, after a long period of time when you did not exercise? I would say, I am sore, S-O-R-E. I could simply say, I am sore. But there are other ways to say it. Oh, hello, Rosa. Let me look at this. So, the situation is working out after not working out for a long time. You could say, I am sore, my muscles are sore, or you could say, I am rusty. This is kind of a more poetic way to say it. I am rusty. Yeah, like a bicycle that's been left out in the rain. I am rusty. So maybe that's Paluxia, I don't know that. I don't know that phrase. I am Doms today. I don't know that one. Sway, you ask, I am going to Smart English so I can keep getting better, correct? Yeah, you can say like an internet site or probably a YouTube channel. You can probably say it like a location. So you could say, I am going to Smart English so I can get better. Yeah, I would say you could say this. You can use a virtual location as a real location. I'm looking, making sure I'm not missing any questions. Okay. And a question about this last sentence. I'm going to eat something because I am getting hungry. Yeah, you can get rid of the word getting because I am hungry. Both, oops, both are, both would be correct. Getting is more, I'm not quite there. I know I will be hungry. By the time I'm done making the food, I will be hungry and ready to eat it. If you take away the getting hungry, it just means I am hungry right now. I am going to be hungry the entire time I'm making or preparing or driving to pick up some food. And maybe another example sentence, this one from Rosa. Because I broke my leg almost 2 months ago, I was not able to go to the gym. The spelling of this gym is G-Y-M, short for gymnasium. The J-I-M is a man's name, as I usually do. And this is correct. Remember, if you start with the linking device and the dependent clause, you'll need a comma and then the independent clause. Ilyas asks a question, what does rusty mean? Rusty is when you leave metal out in the rain and that metal starts to develop, like gets brown. It gets brown and crusty and brittle and starts breaking apart. It's like if you left your bicycle in the rain for many days and it really doesn't work anymore. You've destroyed the metal. You've ruined the metal. Rust is what happens to wet metal. And we use it to talk about humans, to talk about us personally, when we have not kept up with our skills, when we have not practiced a skill for a long time. You can just say, I am rusty. Gym was hard, working out was hard. I was rusty. Though, could we use though in these? Though many customers come. No, though is going to show contrast. This is showing cause and effect. You use though to show contrast, to show difference. And maybe we'll get to difference. Hopefully we'll get to difference by the end of the hour. Yes, Daniel, in all of these sentences, we could use because, or we could use as, or we could use since. In this case, when we show cause and effect, they will all be synonyms. Yeah, okay, bye-bye, Fanny. Thanks for joining us as much as you could. Remember, you can always go back to the YouTube channel and watch the entire archived video. Brat, that's good. Rust or rusty is corrosion, shows corrosion. Carol, you wrote the sentence, I broke my leg yesterday. I can't go to the gym though. That doesn't show contrast. Of course you can't go to the gym. If you said, I broke my leg yesterday, I can go to the gym though, that would be correct because we're showing contrast. Between broken leg, you would think no gym, but if you say, yeah, I can still go to the gym, that's showing two opposing. That's showing a difference between those two statements. So that's when you use though. And again, we'll try to get to difference by the end. Let's see. Oh, hi Bushra. Bye Bushra. Again, Vency, the gym, G-Y-M, not J-I-M, G-Y-M, G-Y-M for gym. Remember that spelling. Thushara, thank you very much for the compliments there. Lane, that's a correct use of rusty. Lane says, for a long time I didn't ride a bike, so I'm rusty. That is correct. That's a correct use of the term rusty. I guess we could call it kind of a slang, an idiom, although it's very, very common. And thank you, Vivek. You guys are very, very complimentary this morning. Let's see. Sway, you ask the sentence. Let's see. Let's check this sentence. Since I, and we're going to use past tense, since I started coming to the classes, I have been learning lots more knowledge in grammar and vocabulary. That is correct. Since, yes, you can use since. We're going to talk, Edward, we're going to talk about because of right now. Okay, these linking devices are a little bit different. Because of, as a result of, and due to. Mo, let me try to remember that question. Is it important to use the same verb in each clause? No, you don't have to. Since here we have a past tense, and here we have a perfect. Here we have past tense, continuous. But remember, we could change this continuous into a present. No, on each side you don't have to have the same verb tense. It just has to make sense. The verb tense has to make sense with the meaning of your two clauses. One, you're asking about subordinating. Subordinating in writing, subordinating clause. I guess I'm using subordinating to talk about a subordinating clause. I'm using it as a synonym for the dependent clause. I'm going to look that up to make sure I have that correct. Yeah, it's just a dependent clause, just a fancy name for, and that's what I thought. I'm going to call it a subordinate clause. It's also called a subordinating clause, although I like subordinate clause better. Yeah, it's just a fancy word for dependent clause. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. Because of, as a result of, due to. These three will have the same meaning, but when you use them in a sentence, when you write them, when you use them in your own sentences, they're going to be a little different. They can only be followed by noun phrases, not a dependent clause. They will not be followed by a clause. So, for example, we have the linking device, and in this case I'm talking about these three new phrases: because of, as a result of, or due to, plus a noun phrase. If you start with the linking device, same thing. You're going to need a comma before the end independent clause, and then of course always remember a period at the end of your sentences. If you start with the independent clause, these linking devices will go in the middle, and then you'll have a noun phrase. So let's look at some examples of these. Maybe I should go back to the... Okay, back to the presentation. Because, I'm going to pop out so you can see that last sentence. Because of customer complaints, the company changed its policy. You could also write this: the company changed its policy because of customer complaints. But you cannot write, because of many customers complained, the company changed its policy. And you can't write that last one because that is a dependent clause. It has a subject and verb. With because of, as a result of, or due to, you cannot have a clause. You must have a noun phrase. In the first one, our noun phrase is customer complaints. And then the independent clause is the company changed its policy. And you can reverse those. Here, red one, due to is going to be synonymous with because of, as a result of. Sway, you're asking about this sentence. So let's go back to the class notes and I'll pop back in. Sway, you wrote this. I couldn't drive my car on the Western Street due to, and I'm going to put an article here, due to an accident. That is correct. After due to, we just need a noun phrase. And a noun phrase, let me maybe define that. A noun phrase is any part of a sentence with a noun. So it could be just a noun, one word, a noun phrase, or a noun and all of its modifiers, meaning all the adjectives that describe that noun. So it could be as short as one word, it could be two words, it could be a long series of words. It's just all nouns and the things that describe that noun, but no verb, no verb. Let's see, do we have any other questions? I'm sure we do. FZ, that's a good question. Why not all the clauses? Well, this class is only an hour, so it is limited. There are many, many words, many phrases that show cause and effect, that show similarities and differences. Because of the time restriction on this class, we're only going to cover some of the more common ones, some of the most useful ones, and then it's going to be up to you to discover some of the other ones, which you can do by studying, by reading. You'll see examples of more. But yeah, we can only cover so much in an hour's time. Like Yuan Zhang mentions owing to, and that is also a linking device. There are so many linking devices. It's crazy. Vivek, you have an example. It's been a long time since I put up a Vivek example. Because of her rude nature, and remember the phrasal verb is broke up. I broke up with her. That's correct. Her rude nature, which would be a possessive, an adjective, and a noun, is a noun phrase. These two modify the noun nature, so that's a noun phrase. After because of, we need a noun phrase, so that's correct. Thushara, your example shows because of rain, they decide to postpone the match, and I'm going to make that present tense. Sometimes a noun phrase just can be one word, just the word rain, which is a noun. JB, your example, I ate the banana because I was hungry, is an example of the first kind. We have a dependent clause and an independent clause. Let's see. Carol, you wrote your example sentence, due to the bad weather conditions, the train station was closed. The bad weather conditions is a noun phrase. And also remember the comma. If you begin with the dependent clause, and your dependent clause is going to be the part that's attached to the linking device, we need a comma there. Okay, bye Rosa. Thanks for joining us for however long you could. Let's see. JB, there's a good because of. Because of my bad knee, I had to walk slowly, and good use of the comma there. The comma after the linking device, and again, just a noun phrase. Remember, no verb there, no verb there. Williams, you asked, can you use a noun phrase with because, as, and since? You can't. With those first three, you have to have a dependent clause. You have to have something with a subject and verb in it. JB, you have another example sentence here. Because of difficult people, the company changed its policies. I guess difficult people can cause a company to change its policy. Venture, you wrote, I didn't manage to go on holiday last year due to my small salary. That's correct. After due to, you have my small salary, and because your linking device comes in the middle of the sentence, you don't need a comma. Lane, you wrote, I was stuck in a traffic jam due to an accident. Again, that's correct. Just a noun phrase after. Milena, because of, owing to, and Yuan Zhang brought that up earlier. We can't, since that's come up twice now, we could expand our list. Owing to is another linking device you can use to show cause and effect. Diary, you asked, is a noun phrase the same as a noun group? That's a good question. I haven't heard of noun group before, but since I have Google up, I could just look it up. I've always heard it as noun phrase. It's a noun or pronoun or group of verbs based on a noun or pronoun. You put he, the bottle of wine. A noun group would be, looking that up, Diary, a noun group would be all of the nouns in a sentence. All of the nouns in a sentence are a noun group. I hadn't heard that term before. Yes, Vivek, that's a good sentence for me. Due to students, I'm going to put an article before that. Due to the students' comments, my eyes are stuck in the chat room of this class. And there's the noun phrase. Yes, you have so many comments. I'm trying to get through most of them. I guess I'm going to have to jump ahead though, so we can try to get to everything. I'm sorry I can't get to all of the examples, but I have to jump ahead. If you have a question and I miss it, please ask it again as when I get done with this section here. Okay, we talked about cause. Let's look at effect. Here are some common linking devices used to express effect. Therefore, as a result, and consequently. These are conjunctive adverbs. As we saw in the previous unit, they are used to connect two independent clauses. Many customers complained. As a result, the company changed its policy. Because these are conjunctive adverbs, we're going to need additional punctuation. We're going to need the semicolon as well as a comma. And the semicolon and the comma go on both sides of the conjunctive adverb, as you see here. So when we write these, we're going to need an independent clause, then a semicolon, then our linking device, which in this case for effect it's going to be therefore, or we can use as a result or consequently, and then a comma, and then another independent clause. So that example, once again, many customers complained. We have subject, many customers, then we have verb complained, then semicolon. And remember, when you use punctuation in English, it's attached directly to the word before. No space between the punctuation and the word before. Then you put a space after the punctuation. Then you'll put your linking device. Then remember, punctuation is always attached to the word before. So then we have our comma, then you have a space, and then another independent clause. With effect, you're going to have independent clause, semicolon, linking device, comma, independent clause. You guys are still writing cause sentences. Can you think of an example for an effect sentence? Can you think of an example of an effect? Milena, looks like you came up with one. Let's take a look at it. The weather is miserable, therefore many people are sitting, and we just say at home, sitting at home. Remember, the beginning punctuation is a semicolon, and the reason it's a semicolon is because these are two independent clauses. Two independent clauses need to be separated by strong punctuation. What I mean by strong punctuation is a period, a question mark, an exclamation mark, or a semicolon. When you use a semicolon, the difference between a semicolon and a period, a question mark, or an let me try that again. The difference between a semicolon and a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark is that a semicolon doesn't end the sentence. This is still all one sentence. So a semicolon is strong punctuation, but it does not break the sentence like a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark does. Betsy, let's look at your sentence. The price of Cristiano Ronaldo is too high. Now remember, always semicolon. Therefore, then the comma, he will stay in Real Madrid until he is retired. Ilyas, your example goes up before with cause. It's a cause example. The people couldn't express themselves freely due to the regime's suppression. Because after due to, we just have a noun phrase. It's not two independent clauses. Lane, let's look at your example. I have been to classes on Smrt, therefore I improved a lot my comprehension in English. I improved, and here we wouldn't use a lot. I improved my comprehension in English. I guess if you want you're using a lot as an adverb. I would say if you want an adverb to use that kind of means a lot, vastly. I vastly improved my comprehension in English. Radwan, what do you have? Radwan, your sentence is, the Smrt English has many qualified teachers, therefore it's the best way to learn English. And of course, I like the use of the semicolon and the comma. Smrt English is a brand, so it doesn't need an article. Sway, you wrote, I bought myself a bike, therefore my little sister wants a pony. Remember, the punctuation is semicolon, then your linking device, then comma. And I'll let you keep your slang term for little, lil. Carol, you've adapted the old sentence we were using before. The company was getting many complaints. Therefore, remember, semicolon, linking device, and comma. Therefore, its policy had to be changed. And the possessive its is just its, no apostrophe. Okay, lots of examples coming in. I can't get to them all. Leo, you asked, can we replace the semicolon with a comma? No, you cannot replace a semicolon with a comma. You could, well, no, I'm not going to say that. No, make it the semicolon. Make it the semicolon because we have two independent clauses. The reason is because we have two independent clauses. Can we use as a result at the beginning of a clause? Yes, we could use, oh, I see, as a result at the beginning. No, we could use as a result of, is that one of ours? Yeah, you can use as a result of, but it'll show cause and you can only follow with a noun phrase. So if we go down here, as a result of the customer's complaints, the company changed its policy. So if we begin with as a result, we're going to need this one, an as a result of, and it's not showing effect. It's, once again, it goes back to this and shows cause. If we use just as a result, it's going to come in the middle. Diary, I'm going to adapt your sentence because I see it right now. I love English. As a result, I don't want to miss Smrt classes. So if you use as a result in the middle, no of attached to it, you can write it like that. Rosa, you're asking if this is correct. We'll take a look at it and see if it's correct. My husband complained about me serving dinner late. As a result, I told him to do it by himself from now on. Yes, that's a correct example. I will believe you in that it's a fictional example. Usually for brands, we don't use an article. Like if I said I drank a Coke, I could use a Coke to mean like one can of Coke. If I say I drink Coke or I like Coke better than Pepsi, I wouldn't say I like the Coke better than the Pepsi. So when we're using the brand name as a brand name, and I just used one where I said I drank, like if I said I drank a Coke, I could use an article, but that stands for like one can of Coke. If I always drink one brand, I would say I drink Coke. I use Apple products. What else? I ate at McDonald's. When we use brand names, we don't need articles when we're referring to that brand name. And of course, there are exceptions. Like if it's something you can eat or drink, you may be able to use an article before it to mean like one item of it. But, I prefer Samsung over Apple. If you say things like that, no article. You need no article with brand names because you're using them as like a proper noun, like somebody's name. You wouldn't say, I talked to the Vivek this morning. I talked to a Leo. And of course, again, there are exceptions where I'm saying I talked to this person who has the same name as this person. And so I could say, I talked to the Vivek that was in my Smrt Live class this morning, not the Vivek that lives down the street from me. So we can use an article before a proper name to show that I'm talking about this specific person, not that specific person, but usually about, I don't know, 90% of the time when we use a proper noun, we won't use an article with it. Proper nouns like names usually don't get articles. And again, there are exceptions. Everything has exceptions. All rules have exceptions. But usually no. Let's see. Looking for any more questions? No? Okay. Nope, that's just an example, Vivek. I don't have, there's not another one that lives down the street from me. Okay, Radwan, I'll see you later. Have a good rest of your Wednesday and a great Thursday. We don't have a lot of time, but as quick as I can, I'm going to cover similarity. Let's see how far we can get in this. Here are some words commonly used to show similarities: like, both, and similarly. Take note of some grammatical differences. Like is a preposition in it and is directly followed by a noun phrase, but not a clause. Similarly is an adverb and is followed by a clause. When comparing or contrasting, the word both is typically followed by two nouns joined with and. For example, both Vancouver and Tokyo. Or it can be followed by a plural noun, like both cities, or a phrase, like both of the cities. Some examples. Like her sister, Sadie was very creative and expressive. Both Sadie and her sister were creative and expressive. Sadie was creative and expressive. Similarly, her sister was a gifted artist. So if we start with like is only followed by a noun phrase. Like her sister, then we're going to put our comma. Sadie was very creative and expressive. And we could flip that. We could say Sadie was very creative and expressive like her sister. Both Sadie and her sister were creative and expressive. Here the word both and is going to combine these two nouns to make the subject of the sentence. And then you just follow with the rest of the sentence, and you just continue the sentence after that. Could we say both sisters? You could. Both sisters were creative and expressive. Sadie was creative and expressive. Here, we're going to use that semicolon again because we're dividing or we're separating two independent clauses. Similarly, comma, her sister was a gifted artist. So, some of the construction. If you begin with like, that'll be followed by a noun phrase, then a comma, then independent clause. And we can flip it. We can put independent clause, then like, and then a noun phrase. But no comma there. If you use both, That'll be a noun phrase. It'll be two nouns or a plural noun or a noun phrase. Then you write the rest of the sentence. Or you can have independent clause, semicolon, similarly, comma, independent clause. Let's see. How about any similar sentences? Fernanda. That's an extremely complicated sentence. Let's take a look at it. Like as the waves make towards the pebbled shore, so do our minutes hasten to their ends. And that's Sonnet 60, Shakespeare's Sonnet 60. Like as the waves, in modern English, of course, well, in current modern English, actually Shakespeare did write in modern English. We would just say like the waves, but he was a little fancier. He was a poet. He needs another beat in there. Like as the wave make towards the pebbled. Why doesn't it like pebbled? Towards the pebbled. Let's see. Is that how you spell it? Should we just go with? Boy, pebbled. It doesn't like. Oh, there we go. Probably Shakespeare spelled it different. I guess that's how we would spell it now. Let's see. Mr. Grigorov, you have written both my shortness, and that's an NESS suffix to that word. Both my shortness and old age are the reasons I'll never play in. And I just said don't use articles with proper nouns, but here with NBA, it's going to be the NBA because of the word association is the last word in that. National Basketball Association, the association. Both my shortness and old age are the reasons I will never play in the NBA. That's correct. That's a good example sentence. Let's see. Okay. 1 minute. Difference. Here's some words for difference. Unlike, however, in contrast, on the other hand, while and whereas, and they have different rules. If you use unlike, use a noun phrase, then comma, then independent clause. Or you can reverse that, independent clause, unlike, and then noun phrase, a noun phrase. So unlike will be used with a noun phrase. Independent clause, semicolon, this, where you divide the two independent clauses, you use this with in contrast, however, and on the other hand. And then finally, while and whereas will be attached to a dependent clause, then a comma, then an independent clause. So some example sentences. Unlike his sister, who was a gifted artist, Mitch could not draw a straight line. So unlike, and then there's the noun phrase, his sister. His sister was a gifted artist, semicolon, in contrast, Mitch could not draw a straight line. And then while his sister was a gifted artist, comma, Mitch could not draw a straight line. Whew. Okay. And that brings us to the end of another lesson. Maybe I'll share that link one more time for anybody who joined halfway through. I rushed it a little at the end, but you get the idea. It depends on what linking device word you're using. You're either going to attach that linking device word to a noun phrase, or you're going to attach it to a dependent clause, or you're going to put it in the middle of two independent clauses. And if you do that, remember to use the semicolon and the comma. Anytime you're reading English, like a book or a magazine, look how they use their linking devices. And it should tell you, is it like a preposition, or is it a conjunctive adverb? How are they using it? And learn a few. We try using those words in the class notes today. I didn't give you all. I'd even come close. There's so many linking device words, but become familiar with some of them. Use them the best way you can, and I hope this helps you with your writing. And with that, I will see you, I guess, next Tuesday. It won't be quite a week. I will see you in 6 days. I will be taking over Abby's class, which is it's more of a beginner class. It's like pre-intermediate, and or just maybe just an intermediate level. So I will be teaching from that, and I will see you very, very soon. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, a great Thursday, great rest of the week. I will see you soon. And bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, practice. And tune in for Josh tomorrow, Sean for Friday. And again, I'll be back here on Tuesday. Okay, take care, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. And here's a quick message from Sean, by the way.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our channel. Also, if you want the full experience of being a student in a Smrt Live class with things like homework and teacher feedback, follow the link and become a premium subscriber. Also, if you want to see more videos from this class, check out our playlist.